Are you having trouble finding your flow as we enter 2023? I'm sure you're not alone if you are. If you are, you're definitely going to want to stick around for this conversation. Today on Live with Laura, I'm joined by my friend Jennifer Trask. She is an award winning business coach, and she's going to show you the way to shift out of hustle and into flow in your business. I'm super excited for this
Yes.
conversation. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We always have such amazing
I know.
conversations. So this one we just happen to be recording. I'm sure it will be no different. We always have so much fun, and we really connected over business and so many different things. So I'm really excited to share this. Oh, we've got some people joining us. Alana, Glenville, awesome. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, if you've got questions, pop them into wherever you're watching this in the comments. We'll pop them up on the screen, and Jennifer or I, depending on who the question is for, will be happy to answer. So you've got us here live for 30 minutes. So awesome. Okay, Jennifer, the first question I want to ask you is, what is your story of revolution?
Yeah. So there are two real things that I want to share with everybody, which was really about hustle and flow. um, but I was working in the corporate world and I had a really good job and I really didn't like it. And I knew that like it was okay, but I knew that it was not the space for me. And I didn't know what I should be doing. So I ended up going to MBA school so that I could buy a little time and learn, like it's never bad to get more education. Education is good. So when I was in MBA school, the best decision I made was to get into the mentorship program. And I had a mentor who was a consultant slash coach, and she was really into like the self-help world. And she introduced me to some people who I still like listen to and learn from today. But one of the things she had said to me was like, there's this conference coming to town and I really think you should go. And she had a deal like on the tickets. Cause when you're in school, you're a student and like you're watching
Yeah.
your dollars. And I was like, sure, I'll go. So it was a full day event. There was 7 speakers. And I remember I was enjoying the day. And I remember when the keynote speaker came out, and it was like I was in a movie, and I was the main character and there's people all around me, but the camera zoomed in on me. And I remember just being enamored with how this speaker got 5,000 people to be so excited and focused on basically living their best life. Like that was, you know what I mean? And I remember thinking, is there a better job than to help people be happy? Like this. Like
Yeah.
I was like, this is the thing. This is what I need to do. And also, I used to be an aerobics instructor, and at one point I'd have like 100 people in my class. So being in front of people was never a problem for me. Like I enjoy it. I love speaking. I love workshops. Like it never fazed me. Like I know that it does for a lot of people. And I knew that was a gift I've been given that I have to use in some capacity. And so I went home and I bought the CDs and DVDs and all the things. And that was the beginning of my introduction really into the self-help world, shall we say. So I didn't know anything about coaching or speaking or like nothing. I just knew I want to do that. So I had to finish my MBA, obviously. And then I got into entrepreneurship, and over the course of 4 to 5 years, I ended up finally finding my niche, which was coaching coaches, and it was about strategy and mindset, which it still is today. But there was a point, the second kind of important thing for my own revolution was, I remember there was a point where I was kind of like looking at my life and my business, and I was like, all I do is work. I was like, this is not fun. Like I enjoyed what I was doing. I loved my clients, but I was like, but I'm not just an entrepreneur. Like I would like to, date and and do go on vacation
Other
and
things.
other things, right? Like be a whole human being. Um, and I really had to look at how I was working, why I was doing what I was doing, like what was actually driving me. And I figured that out and I made changes. And this is why actually what happened in that time is why I am very passionate about what I'm doing and the specific message that I focus on, which is really helping people focus on building sustainable, joyous businesses instead of trying to be that overnight success, which doesn't exist, by the way. And
Isn't it
um
the 10-year overnight success?
it's
Isn't it
basically
like
the
it takes you
10,
10 years to become an overnight
15,
success?
or 20-year overnight
Yeah.
success.
Yeah.
um, but the reason why I'm so passionate about it is because, you know, I in my early years, I was very young and naive and I didn't know a lot. And, I just did you don't know what you don't know. And I saw these stories of people making promises of what seemed to be like, I now know if it sounds too good to be true, it is. But anyways, they were like, if you do this and this and this, like you can get to, I met this one particular woman had made $300,000 in her first year. And now just out of MBA school with MBA debt and all the things. And I was like, well, that sounds pretty good to me. Like, and,
Yeah.
um, but what I realized years later was, she was able to do that because she actually had 17 years of experience. She had a network. It was part timing in that particular business. Like she got in at the right time. Like it was like the stars aligned, but that's not the average person, not particularly a 27-year-old with a network of people who have no money and I have no business experience. And do you know what I mean? And so what I
Absolutely.
realized was I was sold a dream that I was like, it almost felt like I was just lied to. And I see that in the online marketing world a lot, where people make everything seem so easy. And this is why people end up working so hard. And then they think something is wrong with them because it's not happening in the timeline. But the reality is, those case studies are the very few people who got results in that time. And it usually is because they started that thing, but when they started that thing, they had 10, 15, 20 years of experience, or they had more money or resources or the right network or something that gave them an edge beyond like the average person starting out. And so that was a
Yeah.
big catalyst for me because I feel like people have these amazing dreams, and what they don't realize is those dreams are years or decade long dreams, and you got to commit to the long term, not the short term, which is kind of what we see a lot in social media and all this stuff. So that
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
So let's talk a bit about this idea of, mindset, right? So you just mentioned a couple of things that, um, you being sold a dream, it's like different circumstances, different levels of experience, like, and it can be really disheartening. It can be disheartening when you're like, why is this person successful and I'm not? Why can't I do, and you start to question whether you've got the chops. So, how do you build that, powerhouse mindset that can help arm you for success?
Yeah. There's a few things that you can do. And the first thing is you have you ha- I really feel you have to be in business because it is the evolution of who you're becoming versus trying to get away from something or not be something. So I think it comes down first to the internal drive that's driving you. So an example would be, are you trying to just get out of debt or um not or like prove something to someone like a parent or a friend or whatever, are you moving towards a dream that really inspires you, and you know that you're here to do this thing to help these people, and these are your skills, and this is your work. And that makes a huge difference when you're looking at how you show up every day, because that changes your energy, and it changes how you use your time, and it changes like does working fuel you or does it exhaust you? And it all comes from that internal space. And second is, if this is a long-term dream for you, then you're not in such a rush, and you can enjoy the creation of it. Because one of the biggest things that I've noticed on this journey of entrepreneurship, working with so many entrepreneurs, is it actually becomes hard because their focus is on the wrong thing. So their focus of where their confidence comes from and their worth comes from is from outcomes. But outcomes are short, very, very short pieces of time in our timeline. So it would be the same as like your joy is derived from getting engaged or getting married or having the child or getting the job or getting the raise. Like, these things are sure wonderful, but they are such minute portions of our lives from a time perspective. So this is why, as a business owner, you have to fall in love with the process of what you're doing and enjoy the becoming of building your business and who you have to become as a leader. And when you commit to the long-term game, now you have room, because if you don't reach a goal, well, you can just keep going. Like, you're not going to stop. You just, you know what I mean? And the other thing is too, is I think you have to, like, this is definitely something that took me a long time to learn, but I try to pass this on as much as possible because it will stop a lot of people from suffering. But like, you can't look at other people's situations and make assumptions and assume that if they can do it in that timeline, you can too. Because there are so many things that have to align for success to align for you that you don't know about from just looking on the outside of other people's lives. And I think,
Yeah, it's
like,
the highlight reel,
it's
right?
the
And so you're
highlight
only
reel.
seeing what
Yeah,
they want you to see, right?
right. So, if you instead really focus on, this is something that's calling me, and I'm going to see this through, and I'm going to detach from the outcome. Like, I'll tell you something. I saw an interview from Oprah when, this is an old interview. This is like when the Oprah Winfrey Show was going from a Chicago show to a national show. And she
Okay.
was being interviewed by, I think it was Walter Cronkite, but like some, he was a big reporter at the time. And he asked her point blank, what if the show is not successful? And without even blinking, like, she goes, well, it doesn't matter because I'm going to be successful. And if the show doesn't work, something else will.
Ooh,
And I was like, that's
wow.
why Oprah is Oprah. And
Yeah.
because it was never, whereas I have found in my experience, and I know this happened to me, but it happens to basically every entrepreneur I talk about, they attach their worth and their outcome and like so much to these outcomes of like, I'm trying to do this. Oh, it's not working. Oh, I'm a failure. I'm a this, I'm a that. And it sucks the joy out of it. It sucks the life out of it. And the reality is, it doesn't leave room for what could be, because it could be you're called to something because that thing is actually going to take you somewhere else that's even better for you. You just don't know it yet. But if you're constantly stacking it's taking too long, this isn't working, I must not be good enough, conversation, this person's going faster, this, then you just you're suffering in like unnecessarily because of your habit.
Yeah. And I think it really comes, so much of it is mindset, right? Like it's money mindset, self-worth, like all of these things. And
Yes.
that energy you put out into the world is what you attract, right?
Yes.
That's law of attraction. And so that plays a huge part in your business. And people don't realize that, if they're in scarcity, they're going to attract people in scarcity. If they're not enjoying it, they're not going to, how can you sell something if you're not having fun and you're hating what you're doing?
Yes.
It's just, you can push against that and rail against that for a long time and get some measure of success. But it's when you're in that flow and
Yes.
it's not easy,
No.
but it's not hard. Like it's just like it just comes. It flows. I think, like, let's talk about that.
It does, and it's a habit. You have to discipline yourself. Like, to me, it's the difference between, like if you want to start eating healthier in the beginning, it might be hard because your body is used to certain foods and you need to get them out. But if you stick with it, you'll eventually crave, the healthier foods. Or the same is true for exercise. Like if you don't exercise and every exerciser watching this knows, once you start exercising regularly, you don't want to go without it. You feel off if you might go a day or two because you get busy or whatever, but then you're like, whoa, I better go do something. Right.
Yeah.
And so the same is true for really focusing on how far you've come, what's working, who you are becoming, and how proud you are of yourself. Whereas most entrepreneurs do the opposite and they just keep basically shitting on themselves for where they are not. But the problem with that is there's always going to be somewhere you're not. So,
Ooh,
like,
my gosh. Can you just say that again? Because that's like, you get nothing else from this conversation. Jennifer, say that one more time for us.
well, if you keep shitting on yourself where you're not, the problem is there's always somewhere you're not going to be. Because as entrepreneurs, we're constantly moving the needle. The goal keeps moving. Like I remember when I first hit 6 figures in my business and I was very disappointed because it was not as exciting as I thought it would be when I first made the goal. And I was like, oh, 6 figures is going to change my life. And this. And when I got there, I was like, what? Is this it?
I know. I remember hearing somebody, I don't remember where I heard this, but they said the goal you're hitting today that you're complaining about is the goal that you were wishing you could get to 2
Yes.
years ago.
Yes.
And so now you're like, well, now I'm here, but now I'm unhappy with this and I want to get to this. But like, that's where you wanted to be and couldn't imagine being there maybe 2 years ago or a year ago or whatever.
Right. So the happiest entrepreneurs are the ones who are constantly like, wow, look how far I've come. Like I've done this is amazing. And then it easily fuels you and gives you confidence to reach whatever the next goal is. And so instead of the next goal being a painstaking process of like, oh, this is so long, you're like, yeah, well, if I can do that, I can do this. And this is, you know what I mean? And so but it's a practice because, we know that we're wired to look for what's not working and like it and that's what a lot of people connect with when they meet new friends is like, this isn't working. Oh, me too. Oh my God, yes, this is this. And people like complain to connect. But if that's your pattern, then that's your focus, which becomes your reality. And that's not a fun way to live a life or to build a business.
Absolutely. So what are ways, like, just to give people some tangible, like, what are a couple of tips, like one or two quick tips that you're like, here are some things or habits or tools that they could start to implement on a daily basis or whatever it is to build that powerhouse mindset and get more joy in their business?
Yeah. Okay. First, you have to commit to the long term. So none of this, if this doesn't happen in 6 months business, like, no, you have to stop that. Building a business takes years. It is not months, it is years. And also, you have to remember when you're creating goals, particularly if you're newer to entrepreneurship, this gets easier as you get more experienced. But when you're newer, things just look like so doable, but you don't really know what is required of you in order. So just stay open, and when you're ready for the goal, it will happen for you. But focus more on like who you're becoming and what's working, instead of, where you are not, and think long term, not like thinking in 5 and 10 and 15 years, not even 1 year, like think long term.
Yeah,
Um,
love it.
that's the first thing. The second thing is you have to focus every day. This is the discipline you have to do on what's working and how far you've come and how proud you are of what has happened. So that includes like, oh, I learned this skill. I got better at this. Like, oh, creating an email only took me 30 minutes instead of 2 hours. Like, look at me go. Like, that's very helpful. Like, actually, right? But people don't measure progress like that. They only tend to measure progress in terms of sales. But the reality is, in order to make more sales happen, there's a whole host of skills that have to be developed. And so focusing on progress in terms of all the skills you're developing, and even including your network and who you're getting more connected with and all that. Like, so you have to discipline yourself to daily focus. So this is similar to a gratitude practice, but a deliberate gratitude practice around who you are becoming and what's working in your business. And the last thing I would
I
say,
love it.
yeah, it's really good. It's very powerful. But the last thing is, you have to surround yourself with people who think this way. Because if you're constantly around people who are just complaining, or people who are like, oh, this isn't working, that like you're going to do it too. It's assimilation, right? And I mean, Laura, you're in a different country with a different language. What's the fastest way to learn a language? Easy. Go live in the country that speaks the language and speak to the locals. Maybe you take some lessons while you're at it, but don't speak your language, speak theirs. You're going to get there much faster, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah. And so you have to speak the language of success that you want. It's why one of the reasons I focus a lot on joy, because there's enough people out there teaching hustle and you just need to work harder. And it's like, no, you don't need to work harder. You actually probably need to work less because you're so exhausted. So you're not even taking advantage of being in a state of flow, which is where your best work is going to come from. So, like you got to be open and find the people who are modeling what you want your business and your mindset and your experience to be like in your business. And then you got to get around those people and just like, because then the other stuff becomes easier. When that's the norm of the conversation, it's easier for you to move your habits into their habits.
I love that. And this is why Jennifer and I connected immediately. Like it was just because we have a similar mindset. Doesn't mean you don't have moments where you're like,
oh no, of course,
this is a struggle, and you need to be able to communicate those with people that you can talk through with that. But if you're always in that negative spiral and you just surround yourself with other people that are the same, you're all just going to collectively bring each other down. Whereas if you're all trying to lift each other up, even if you're down, they're going to be there to pull you up. And that's a beautiful thing about a strong community.
And I will say this just as a note, because I know this is a big topic in the last year or two. This isn't about not if something bad happens and ignoring it. Like, no, this is not about toxic positivity or anything. But this is about, because it's actually very healthy to move through your emotions. But the thing is this is about your deliberate focus. So, and a lot of the things that people are upset about are things they don't actually need to be upset about. And part of it is because of the illusion of time that they're putting on themselves, which is why coming back to the first point of thinking long-term is so important. So, yes, if you're having a bad day, feel your emotions, go to therapy, do whatever you need to do. But
absolutely,
but you do have to focus more on what's working and where you're going. And being around people who will raise you up and who will fuel you and who will help you um, bring the best out of you. And that's how you're going to have like the most successful and joyous business.
I love that. Now, I would love for you to share, I know we're getting to the end of our time. So how can people connect with you? There's a couple of questions in LinkedIn from Glenville. We didn't get a chance to cover those. So I'll let you go in and maybe you can just
Yes.
support him there. That would be amazing. And how can people connect with you? Do you have any resources that you could share to help them on their journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually did interviewed 10 of my clients / colleagues who have 6 and 7 figure businesses, coaching businesses. And I asked them like, what was the big shift for you that helped you move into 6 or 7 figures with more ease and more joy? And so I put it together in an amazing resource. They can find it on my website, which is jenniferltrask.com.
Amazing.
On the main
Thank you.
page.
All right.
Yeah.
Go download that resource. Jennifer, thank you so much for your insights. I'm definitely going to be making some quote cards from this because there's some such valuable insights. And I love that idea of the long term, right? If you're always just focused on those objectives and those things that maybe didn't work out, it detracts you from, staying focused on that long-term vision, knowing that every day, you're working towards it. And ultimately, there is no destination,
No.
right? Like, I think that's what we're missing is like, we're always striving for like, we just want to get there. I've been totally guilty of that, but you're like, but where is there?
Yeah.
You've got to enjoy the journey along the way and what you're creating. So thank you for reminding me and sharing all of your amazing wisdom with everybody here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's been super fun.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for joining us. Next week, we're going to be talking about money mindset. So make sure you join us for that conversation. All right. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.